Imagine a single announcement that arrives like thunder across headlines, an announcement that promises to change the story of a nation. Picture a leader standing before a people who have long seen their wealth leave the country as raw materials, and then imagine that same leader declaring a different future, one where value is created at home, jobs are built locally, and the benefits of the land return to the people who live on it. This is the moment we are exploring now, the claim, the possibility, the facts, and the risks behind an extraordinary headline that has caught the world's attention. To understand why this matters so much, begin with the basic truth about the country at the center of the story. It is a nation rich in a stubborn, glittering resource. Gold shapes its economy. For many households, the metal held beneath the ground represents work, hope, and sometimes desperation. For decades, the pattern has been familiar: raw ore goes out, profit leaves, and the communities closest to the mines see too little of the reward. That pattern is why any policy dealing with gold is never only a matter of economics. It is a matter of power, dignity, and of who writes the rules for a country's future. The man who has made those rules his signature project is a soldier turned head of state. He rose in a moment of crisis, and he speaks with a rare directness. He frames his mission as reclaiming sovereignty over national wealth, as correcting centuries of arrangement that left ordinary people as passive bystanders. His rhetoric is stark: more control for the state, more local processing, fewer foreign intermediaries. To supporters, this is justice. To skeptics, it is a faster route to confrontation with investors and to risky moves in a fragile economy. That tension is the backdrop to every announcement and rumor that follows. Now imagine the central claim that set off global chatter: an agreement with a distant partner, described in some reports as massive in scale, promising investment, industrial projects, and a fundamental shift in how trade and payments are conducted. For those who hear this claim as fact, the narrative becomes instant and sensational: foreign capital arrives, refineries are built, money flows into public coffers, and the nation emerges as a manufacturer rather than a raw material supplier. For others, the reaction is skepticism: extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and large headline figures circulating on social platforms must be examined carefully. So let us be precise: there is evidence of a deliberate policy by the government to take a larger role in mining and to increase local value addition. There have been public plans and announcements focused on building domestic capacity for processing precious metals. Those plans are real, they are measurable. What is less clear, and what requires scrutiny, are the details behind the viral headlines naming specific deal structures, dollar values, and unusual payment methods that bypass traditional banking channels. When the big figures spread first through social posts and short videos, they often lack the contracts, the financing schedules, and the official texts that turn speculation into binding commitments. If you are following this as a citizen, a journalist, or a producer making a long documentary, here is how to think about this story in 3 honest lenses. First, the realistic upside; second, the plausible risks; and third, the forms of governance that determine which of those 2 outcomes actually happens. Start with the upside. A credible, well-structured partnership that focuses on domestic processing could change the economic arithmetic of an entire region. Instead of shipping raw ore to refineries overseas, the country could capture more of the value chain, mining to refining to finished goods, with local technicians, engineers, and managers employed at each step. That means more formal jobs, higher tax revenues, and a clearer base of funding for roads, clinics, and schools. In the best-case scenario, the nation would not merely export raw metal, it would export talent, components, and the beginnings of an industrial ecosystem. That outcome depends on clear contracts, technology transfers that actually build local capability, and training programs that create a skilled workforce able to sustain operations long after the initial investment arrives. Now consider the likely risks. Big projects can become a funnel for elite capture when oversight is weak. When procurement is secretive, winners may be chosen because of connections rather than competence. When projects are rushed for political theater, budgets can blow out and communities can suffer harm to land and water. An ambitious refinery can become a half-built monument if funds dry up or if political winds shift. Alternative payment mechanisms, when proposed as a way of escaping dollar dependence, can also be complex traps. Commodity-backed transactions require rigorous custody, transparent valuing, and strong auditing. In the absence of those safeguards, what appears to be a sovereign assertion of independence can become a series of legal battles and disputed assets. Then there is the security angle. For a country struggling with internal unrest and violent groups, any arrangement with foreign partners often includes a security dimension. That might be training for armed forces, logistics support, or equipment. Those measures can be stabilizing if they are accompanied by accountability and clear legal frameworks. But military cooperation also reshapes regional dynamics, inviting reactions from neighboring states and from larger geopolitical actors who watch influence shift on the continent. Diplomatic clarity matters. Security cooperation must be governed by law, parliamentary oversight, and public transparency, or it risks eroding the legitimacy it is meant to bolster. We must also examine the practical mechanics of any major deal. Real investment means feasibility studies, environmental reviews, procurement processes, and phased financing. Money on paper is not the same as money in the ground. A credible partnership usually begins with expressions of interest, moves to technical studies that test viability, and proceeds toward phased contracts with enforceable milestones. Along the way, transparent reporting, independent audits, and public updates are the guardrails that protect public interest. When those steps are compressed or bypassed, risk multiplies. Another part of the story is the informal economy that surrounds gold. Artisanal miners and small traders are the human face of this industry. Their livelihoods often depend on local wells of gold that are mined by hand, carried to collection points, and exported through a mix of formal and informal channels. Attempts to formalize this sector can produce much better tax yield and safer working conditions, but the transition must be managed carefully. Shutting down exports without clear, humane alternatives risks driving activity underground, eroding state revenues, and fueling social unrest. Any national strategy that aims to curb illicit trade and smuggling must pair enforcement with economic offers that are realistic and immediate. Now put this country's trajectory into a regional and global frame. Across the Sahel, political shifts have produced new alignments and fresh debates about sovereignty and partnership. Some leaders are determined to rebalance old dependencies and to diversify their range of external partners. Those strategic choices alter the incentives for external investors and create a new playing field in which non-traditional partners offer different kinds of packages: rapid infrastructure deals, defense cooperation, and commodity-linked financing. The consequence is a more crowded diplomatic map and, for citizens, a range of new promises they must evaluate carefully. What should a skeptical but hopeful citizen watch for in the weeks and months after a headline breaks? First, find the contracts. If a major package exists, its terms should be published or at least summarized in a reliable way: financing amounts, repayment terms, procurement processes, and oversight mechanisms. Second, check the feasibility studies and environmental impact assessments. Third, look for staged implementation with visible milestones: ground broken, construction permits filed, sections of infrastructure opened. Fourth, watch for independent audits that confirm the flow of funds and the use of resources. Fifth, follow local civil society and investigative reporters who can tell the human story often missing in press releases. Let us imagine a few concrete project types and how they might change daily life. A domestic refinery would create factory jobs and ancillary service work: truck drivers, maintenance teams, safety inspectors, and laboratory technicians. New roads would lower transport costs, allowing farmers to reach markets more reliably and lowering the price of basic goods. Electrification projects tied to industry would expand household energy access. Vocational training centers could turn a generation of informal workers into certified technicians paid informal wages. Each of these changes can be transformative, But each also requires sustained public investment and robust contractual protections that ensure benefits are not siphoned off. Equally important are the environmental and social safeguards. Mining and refining are not benign processes. They consume water, alter landscapes, and can leave communities with long-term ecological damage if not managed properly. That means environmental impact assessments must be public, mitigation plans must be enforced, and affected communities must share in decision-making and compensation. Countries that have done this well anchor mining projects within wider planning frameworks that link industrial zones, resettlement schemes, and public health responses. Without those linkages, projects can leave long shadows over the places they were supposed to help. Another layer is finance. Large projects require capital that is often multi-sourced: sovereign funds, foreign direct investment, multilateral lending, and private banks. Each source brings conditions. When deals propose alternatives to conventional currency payments, the international finance community takes notice because such mechanisms can affect reserves, debt sustainability, and credit ratings. If a deal involves commodity-based payment systems, custodial arrangements and valuation protocols must be extraordinarily clear. Otherwise, disagreements about price and custody can create long legal disputes that tie up assets and delay development. So what do we mean when we say governance will decide the outcome? Governance in this context is a package: open contracting, public reporting, judiciary independence, parliamentary scrutiny, empowered local governments, and active civil society. The best projects create institutional routines that outlive transient political cycles. That is how a single agreement becomes a long-term transformation rather than a headline that soon fades. Now consider how to report on or narrate this story in a long documentary. Don't only chase the sensational number. Start at the people level. Show an artisanal miner's day. Follow a child who lives in a mining town to the local school. Interview a local mayor about land rights. Trace a truck carrying ore to a port. Then step back into the economy and explain how a refinery would change the balance sheet. Include the legal experts who can explain contract clauses, and the environmental activists who will not accept half measures. These human anchor points make the technical sections of the story meaningful. While we build that narrative, remember the problem of viral rumors. When a sensational figure spreads online, it crowds out sober analysis. Viral clips simplify, using dramatic music and bold claims, and viewers swallow the narrative because it is emotionally satisfying. The antidote is methodological: verify official texts, sit with independent analysts, and treat social posts as leads, not as finished stories. At the same time, some skeptics warn that doing nothing also has a cost. Allowing raw materials to be exported without value addition locks a country into low-wage, low-skill sectors. The challenge is to pursue change without betting the entire future on speed alone. The correct policy is deliberate, staged, and auditable. It is not instant headline theater, it is patient institution building. Now let us imagine alternative futures. In one version, the government executes a fully documented partnership. Contracts are transparent. Projects are built to schedule. Training programs expand, and the first generation of local technicians begin to run the refinery. Taxes begin to fund clinics and roads. Small businesses grow around industrial hubs. The country starts to keep more of the value it creates. That outcome is not magic, it is institutional design put into practice. In the other version, announcements are made, photographs are taken, and ceremonial signings are celebrated, but the documentation is thin, the procurement opaque, and the projects stall. Money goes missing, land is degraded, and communities are left bargaining for crumbs. The picture we all dread is a familiar one, a promise that turns into another chapter in the history of extraction. As we near the end of this discussion, I want to ask you directly, do you believe billion-dollar foreign deals can truly deliver prosperity to ordinary citizens, or are they more likely to enrich elites? If you were negotiating on behalf of your country, what safeguards would you demand? And do you think partnerships outside of the traditional Western financial system can really work in today's world? Share your perspective, because your voice matters in this global conversation. Thank you for staying with me through this deep dive. If you found this analysis valuable, subscribe to AfriPol Lens for more grounded investigations that cut through noise and look at the facts behind the headlines. If you learned something new, like the video and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps this channel grow and ensures we can keep bringing you thoughtful, evidence-based content.